but I didn't know what to search under. So.
Ooh, sorry about that. That was a little bit loud. All right, we're recording, so I can
Okay.
not avoid doing that later. How's life?
It's okay. How are you? I've been thinking about you. I was wondering how your throat, your voice
Had some
recovered.
surgeries to clear some stuff up.
You
Things are
did.
working.
Okay. Yeah.
It was not a Mephlin tea thing, unfortunately. I had to actually go under the knife a couple times.
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
You sound good though.
I feel a lot better. Like a few months ago, I could barely talk without feeling like I was choking. I mean, it was just absolutely miserable. It was the worst experience I've ever had. It's ongoing. I mean, they basically got to clear this horrible disease off my vocal cords, and it keeps coming back and back and back.
Wow.
They keep whacking away at it like it's a weed or something. It's horrible.
You've got a little bit of a, little bit of like a cowboy edge in your voice now. So it works for radio. How hard for you though?
Yeah,
Someone that uses your voice
people have it
all
worse,
the time.
right? People have it worse, but I mean, in terms of what they told me, non-cancerous, so that's good. Everything else is golden, you know. They also said that the more we work on it, the better it'll get. So that's also good. You know what I mean? It's like you hate to get those experiences where they say, okay, this may not work. You may have to go under the knife, and we're gonna have to tell you that it's not working. That's not the case, so it's good news.
Oh yeah. Well, and for someone like you that, you use your voice all the time, you're a storyteller, it's like probably
It put things in
incredibly
perspective, right? I mean, it made me
yeah.
want to do things that I wasn't able to do.
Yeah.
I experimented with maybe putting some of my stories to audio. It's like, you might as well. You know, you might not have a voice in 10 years or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can relate to that. I had my surgery last year and I,
Yeah.
it just took a long trip. This summer we went to Ireland and I took my son, and it was definitely a different experience in a lot of ways, but one of the ways was like, "Oh, I can't do that anymore." And trying not to get down like, "Oh, I can never go on a roller coaster again," but just sort of realizing, that I have to make choices that, keep me, safe and I don't wanna
Yeah, I
say
mean, right?
sober, but, more more with it.
You don't want to be inebriated. Is that what you're saying? Actually, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're kind of loose. Like to stay
Oh,
on top
no,
of things.
not
Is that
so
what you're
much that, but just that the whole idea of just kind of, just being a little bit more conscientious and present with all decisions at
Yeah.
all times, because it's not just, it's not just me that I'm, considering, which of course that as a parent. It's not
Yeah.
just you you're
Oh God.
considering, but when your health is threatened, it definitely changes your perspective, really flips your perspective quite a bit, I think, because you wanna, um, they don't have a choice in it. Not that you have a choice, but you can make decisions for your health, to help preserve your health as much as possible. And I mean, just like for you, it's not like this is something that you brought on yourself or a specific behavior caused it or can be pinpointed to it. But nonetheless, you still now going forward have to make the right decisions, and to try and preserve and
Everything. Yeah. I mean, everything's debatable, though, isn't it? I mean, in terms of decision making. Your back falling down, right? You could potentially say that you were born with a genetic defect that put you in a situation where you were more susceptible to that kind of injury. You know what I mean? It's not your fault. You did slip. You weren't maybe potentially paying as attention as you probably could have been.
yep.
You could find fault in yourself, but at the same time, there's a limitation to being alive. You know what I mean? You did something that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, those are things that cross your mind too as you're about to go under the knife for sure. Like, I mean, for me, I was in so much pain at that point. I was not even really
that's
that
great.
present.
Yeah, I totally get
But
that.
but at the same time, you certainly have a lot of time building up to it, and you have a lot of retrospect for sure as you're recovering. And that is the time when you really start rehashing every moment. Well, what if I hadn't? And I know for me, I'm looking back thinking like, okay, was it this time that I fell? Was it that time that I fell? Oh, I remember back in the day, I used to say, my tailbone hurt, or, it's just like you kind of go through all these things in your
Yeah,
mind, like,
totally.
was that it?
When
Was
I used to
that
play
the
football,
moment?
I think we talked about this. I used to play football in high school, middle school, or whatever, and I hurt myself a bunch as a kid.
Yeah.
It didn't stop me from doing dumb things. I did dumb things all the way through my 20s. But now, when I watch a football game, I experience these hits in a new way because I'm so old, I guess, fragile, because I've actually injured myself, and the injuries now are aching endlessly. Man. And also, about back injury and about my throat situation, having kids really puts things in perspective. If you do re-injure your back and your kid is in danger, you can't get to them. I feel like when I lost my voice and they said, don't use it, and my kids are like dangling on the abyss of danger or something, I've got to scream, Hank, no! You know what I mean? It's just impossible not to. So I'm like hurting myself to help them avoid hurting themselves. Impossible to avoid.
Yeah, it is impossible to avoid. And you know, I would say, like, being a year out from the surgery now, I feel less vulnerable to the, you know, it all happening all over again. But I'm planning a trip to Scotland with a dear friend of mine, and she's a horseback rider. She loves horses. She grew up with horses. She's, oh, let's go horseback riding in the Highlands. And it's like, oh my God, doesn't that sound amazing? Horseback riding through the Scottish Highlands.
Yeah, it does.
And then I'm like, oh, horseback riding. Oh,
what would that do to you?
I don't think I can do it.
What would horseback riding do to you?
I think it would be too jarring. Yeah. You know, nobody said to me, don't do bungee jumping or anything like that. But, and so some of it may be just my own personal fear of, like, weighing those risks. But, you know, I was just at this amusement park in Ireland that had the world's or Europe's tallest roller coaster. And it was this big rickety wood roller coaster. And it just looked absolutely terrifying with this vertical drop. And it looked like so much fun. And it just says in big letters, like, you know, back injury, you know, all this whole list of, like, don't go on this roller coaster if you are
walk afterward.
Yeah. I mean, and it was like, oh, you know, and I think this is something I think we talked about this a little bit before, like that there's the time when you aren't diagnosed with something, and then there's the time after, and it's not just the retrospect. And I talked about this quite a bit with a really good friend of mine who was diagnosed with cancer at a young age.
You're missing one part, though. The part before you're actually getting the diagnosis, that you know there's something wrong. You know what I mean? You can't
sure. Yes.
You're like, I don't know what the fuck this is, and this guy in a white coat is about to tell me something's wrong, buddy, and you got to get it fixed. But before that moment,
it's so funny. I was thinking about that today because I'm kind of writing, like, a sort of more of a novel that weaves in some of the medical stuff, but undoubtedly in a more science fiction way. And I was thinking about the description of the doctor, and I was thinking about how my relationship with him changed so much when he actually helped me, even though he was helping me all along.
Did you like him or did you hate him? Because I hate my doctors, and they actually like.
Well, that's what I realized, is that I realized that the moment that he walked in, he was just this young, super smiley, handsome, very vibrant man. And I remember in that moment hating him and feeling so gross that, like, it was the kind of man you don't want to be, you know, in your sweatpants around. And I could barely even lift my head up. And I just thought, you know, it's totally vain. It was a totally vain thought. Then, because now when I think of him, I just think of him as this, like, shining hero that totally saved me. But I remembered today, for some reason, I just had that trigger moment where I remembered the first time I met him and how he made me feel, and what a dark place I was in. So that's just, there's totally that whole diagnosis and process that you go through where you're trying to determine if you know, what's going on. You both want the diagnosis, and you also don't care because you know that you're just, like, in this extreme situation. But I think the recovery is really kind of the odd time. Because I had this conversation with a really good friend of mine who was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's quite young, and now she's post-cancer, right? Yeah,
is
and it's
forever afterward. I mean, you never stop recovering from your back injury, my broken arm, my busted knees, my throat
right.
thing.
You are
You're
forever
different.
changed. You
You're
are
different.
now the person on that other checklist.
Exactly.
And that's that whole kind
Exactly.
of
You're checking off too, aren't you? You're looking at it. Do I have a
you're
problem?
like, actually, yeah, that could happen, that could happen, that could
Just
happen.
okay. Look at the steps. Are they icy? What's going on here?
Now
Your friend,
now
I mean, cancer is a scary one because obviously, I mean, I've thought about it because it's been there. You know, when you look online for this thing that's going on with me, you see the word tumor, and it's like, what the fuck is this bullshit going on with me right now? And
yeah.
it's not, you know, it's not cancer, but it's a thing that sounds like it significantly.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you start thinking about actually getting that cancer diagnosis. I was walking down the hospital hallway for a doctor appointment, and I don't know what's up with NYU. I really don't. Her door was wide open. This doctor's having a conversation with this patient, going, "Okay, the test result." I mean, I swear to God, this is like verbatim. The test results came back. There are some abnormalities. I'm listening to this conversation. This doctor's having it with this patient, and I'm picturing being that patient, getting this news. How does that feel, dude? You got something. You're gonna die. Your friend with breast cancer. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
There you
I
go.
yeah, I just lost you for one quick second. Yeah, right as you said, die, dun dun dun.
Discord.
Well,
Adding
so
to the theatrics.
I am curious because I mean we talked last time about for myself the kind of trauma and writing and all of that, and I'm curious if for you especially just based with the doctor's orders to talk less at least for a period of time, right? Did that trigger writing ideas? Because I feel like there's a fine line when you're like, wow, all this stuff is actually going to feed this in, where you can use your trauma to
Yeah.
actually create, but there's this other line where
Mhm.
you're depressed
Yeah,
and you're
just too
just
much. I
like,
mean, when I got told that there was a kind of a vocal rest period that was going to last for 2 days to 5 days to very many weeks. I mean, I didn't get it. The worst I got was 2 days. I felt like it was suffocating me. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like the aspect of losing my voice was like losing my ability to actually function as a living human being. It was only bad for 2 days, and Mike did not want to talk for those 2 days. And it turned out to be the third surgery, and it turned out to be the best one, the one that worked the best, the one that's was able to make me send an email to you and say, "Let's do a podcast." You know, however grammatically that sentence should have been said, it allowed me to take the next step towards the life that I had before this all started.
yeah.
But it was the worst one. 2 days of just not talking, but it was fine doing it. It was the idea of it that made me feel like I was going to die doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's weird.
I can relate to that suffocating. Yeah, I mean, I've lost my voice multiple times, just from doing, too many radio interviews and too many shouts at a concert and whatever things have happened, being up too late. Um, One time it was actually after a radio interview. I think I was on, for some reason, it was like 3 hour block of time, and I it was a really long interview, and I had never done it. I'd done a few 2 hour stints with like coast to coast and stuff, but I'd never done a 3 hour interview. And I just after that, I lost my voice for like I mean, I could talk at a whisper, but I lost my voice for like 2 or 3 days, and it was really, really difficult because I'm a gabber
Yeah.
and I have a running commentary on
Yeah.
everything that
Everything. They ask on the application when I see this doctor, they say, "How talkative are you?" There's a range of like 1 to 10, and I'm like
Did you put
10
13?
plus. I was like, I can't stop talking. I told my wife, I was like, "This question's on this thing." She's like, "Ha ha ha ha." What'd you tell him? I was like, "Shut up." That's how bad it is for me.
Oh, well, I'm happy that you have recovered enough to start your podcast again and just kind of start functioning um, more like your previous life, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's working. I mean, we moved too. It was been a very stressful period of time. In fact, I was hoping that we could talk about where I moved to because it's a really cool area in Brooklyn. I'm like so close to Greenwood Cemetery. It is unbelievable. I could
Really?
spit right now and hit
Grave?
Bernstein. He's right there.
That didn't come out how you meant it to.
Exactly. I have nothing against the guy. I wouldn't spit on his grave, right? Speaking of fans, people listening to your radio shows and podcasts and things of that nature, somebody left a comment on one of our videos together. He sounded incredibly lucid. Yeah, he was. He said, "I want to. Let me see. I'm going to find the. Nobody comments on our videos or anything for that matter." So,
is it like a pseudonym for me or something who commented?
Yeah, right. No, this guy, he's the guy that you would imagine is actually making comments on videos on YouTube. I don't know how to find the comment though. Let's see. I'll go to my channel. I think it was on trauma. But basically, he said, I want to tell this lady that her opinions on ghosts and stuff is wrong. The world's actually infected by demons and the apocalypse is coming. I was like,
oh, that kind of comment. Oh, yeah. I thought it was a positive comment.
No. 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 I mean, I would imagine you get a lot of that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I think I had, now I may have told you this story, but I had I mean, to be fair, it was taken a little out of context as far as I'm concerned. But I was on Coast to Coast and I was asked a question about changelings, which I answered. And the answer was actually sort of a quote from William Butler Yeats about like the cure. And it was something that he had recorded years and years ago, back in the late or the early 1800s when he's traveling around Ireland and he's writing down all these fairy and folk tales. And the changeling, just in case you're not familiar, is basically when something from the fairy kingdom comes and switches your baby. Sometimes it can be adults, but it's almost always a baby or a young child. And there are all these precautions you take if you're gonna have if you're in labor, to make sure that the fairies don't come in and switch your baby. So there's
it's like very Eastern European, right? Like Polish. Poland has a lot of these type of superstitions where fairies will come.
Yeah, and this one was place. And this was yes, and this one was specific to Ireland, and it all kind of comes down to, you can look at it in a lot of different ways. You can look at it metaphorically, like it's very, for example, in this one particular excerpt, they talk about how in order to protect yourself, this is in Ireland, in order to protect yourself from the changelings, you need to make sure all the doors are closed, all the drawers are locked, basically everything's hermetically sealed. Now, you can look at that metaphorically as well and think, well, that is the best way to prevent infection, right, in a newborn or a birthing mother. These are sort of, whether this is a conscious decision or why people are doing it, it's a protective measure. So there's kind of that evolution of story as actually directing our
education,
society, right? Our education. Yeah.
Right.
So you can look at it
that going way. From generation to generation. This is why it worked for me, and the Rumpelstiltskin is the reason why you do it.
That's exactly. And sometimes these what are called like peasant stories or original stories, they often end up proving what years and years of science will go through to kind of prove like what the natives were saying all along. This plant is poisonous. They might have said it has a twisting demon that comes out of it.
Exactly.
But that's exactly how you feel when you eat this plant. So it's kind of half a dozen of one, six of the other. It's all perspective.
What do you want it to be though? I mean, honestly, I know you have. You want the fairies. Are you disappointed that it's more scientific?
I actually like I actually like weighing the points of view and being proven wrong. You can tell your commenter this. No, but being proven wrong in that when I think that I've got it figured out, and this is because I do like to, I studied a lot of anthropology as a younger person. And so that anthropological approach to story is, you don't just rule everything out. It's a science, but it's a slightly more of a social science, right? So there's psychology, but at the same time, when I say, oh, well, this was just this can be attributed to this particular medical abnormality or what have you. Um, that can apply in some cases, but it doesn't always explain it away. So I think I'm always searching for, what could be. And I also like to rule out a lot of things. I mean, I hear
Yeah.
and see and read and am told things all the time that I do not believe. So when I
Yeah.
actually like put stock in something and then,
I mean,
it
the
could be
world is obviously flat, right, Varla?
right, right, right. You just kind of sail right off the edge. Um, so in any case, I was taking a comment I made about taking this fairy cure to get to scare off a changeling and get your baby back,
Mhm.
which was a quote from William Butler Yeats. I mean, I was kind of paraphrasing it, but it was taken from his passage on changelings.
He was the
Um,
fairy guy, wasn't he? He was the guy that did the fairies back in whatever.
Yes, he was sort of what we think of as the Grimm, where the Brothers Grimm traveled around, Germany and parts of Europe, gathering fairy tales and folk stories. Yeats was doing that in Ireland. He was an Irish writer, was quite revered, and actually, I went to Yeats' country, which is a part of Ireland I had not been to yet, and went to his grave and kind of saw the mountain, Bilbom that he's supposed to be buried at the base of, which I probably said wrong because I always pronounce everything in Ireland wrong and then get corrected, just to, prove I'm an American. So anyway, this comment was taken out of context, and you do have to know if somebody's listening. Now with the podcast, it's a little different because somebody's going to probably listen from beginning to end. So we thank him for listening. But with
Exactly.
a radio
I
show,
don't.
like
I
a
had no
live
clue.
radio show, someone could tune in and just they get this snippet. So essentially what happened is I was talking about this thing where you pour you basically you get boiling water going, and the idea is that you're going to either pour hot water or boiling oil. You threaten to do that onto the child, and that in turn scares the fairy out and and then you can get your baby back, right? I never said to do it. I
Sure.
just was basically merely citing the folkloric record, of course. But uh, it was taken out of context, and there are a lot of vulnerable people out there who were listening. And I received quite a few negative comments after that, being told I was irresponsible and to be fair, I I was just kind of telling the story, and I wasn't thinking about how that story was coming across, and I wasn't thinking about the fact that someone might have just tuned in at that moment, which is a live radio thing that you have to think of. So there was definitely a
Yeah.
learning experience there for me.
Mhm.
And I did read people's comments and death threats and things like that, and I
Death
after
threats. Holy
yeah,
shit.
oh yeah, I got death threats. I was like, "Okay." But then
Wow.
but then I realized that the person so I tracked down this person and found their Facebook profile, and when I actually it was interesting experience for me because I'd had negative comments and negative reviews and things like that before, but I hadn't had like this much like direct hatred funneled at me, and it was a little disconcerting. But
It's
then
interesting
what
because
happened is
I
no,
mean,
go ahead.
I was wondering if it would be. I mean, I heard a really interesting quote the other day about the fact that the Renaissance was only like 20 generations ago, or something along those lines,
Mm.
where scientific reason just started. Calculus didn't exist beyond 20
Burn the
generations ago,
witch.
right? I mean, exactly. You had
The
it
angry
wasn't
mob is at your door, it's just on the
exactly,
internet now, and
but
it's
you
it's
have little
worse because it's
grandmas.
close.
You have little grandmas are the seat of all knowledge, basically. Grandma's going to tell you how to make the dinner, and grandma's going to tell you why things work the way they do. And the grandma is three generations from the generation that you're threatening with hot water. So, I mean, that could permeate through the society that we're currently living in and still kind of exist in ways. That grandma
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
illiterate, who
Yes,
never
yes.
learned anything, who was born 100 years ago. My grandma lived to 99 years old and 364 days before she died. I think I said this before. She just refused to be 100. I'm not going to be 100. And she made sure that happened. She just didn't want to live any longer. And she just died then, right before she was 100 years old. But I don't know how literate she was. I never had a conversation with her about calculus or the internet or anything for that matter, other than Jesus Christ or something along those lines. So if she thought that you threaten babies with boiling water or oil to get rid of demons, she's not going to think of anything else but that. Right.
Right. Well, and what happened is then someone advised just ignore it. But I actually kind of followed this person to where I found their Facebook page. And the strangest thing happened. As soon as I looked at this person's picture and their page, I was immediately filled with empathy and kindness. It was the strangest thing because I just looked at this person and I realized that they were not, it wasn't just like, oh, this person's just crazy or whatever. It was like, oh, okay, this person, there were other things on that page that led me to understand that this person had probably some mental health issues.
I was going to say deficits, like obvious deficits.
Yeah, and I just felt this overwhelming, it was so strange, but I just felt this overwhelming sense of love toward her. It was very like, I was just like, oh, and I don't think if I had looked at her picture, like the idea of her and what she was trying to do to me was worse than when I looked at her and I thought, okay, you are human, you are damaged, and you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to cause me harm, but she had no power to actually do that.
I was just thinking about, you juxtapose that with that dude in Dallas who decided to go down to El Paso and just murder Mexican people. I mean, is that the same type of person? Born that would threaten to kill you? Is that the same type of person that would have an AK-47 and say all Mexican people are bad?
Possibly, yeah, definitely could be. I mean, there's always that we live in a society where that turning point, that threat, but as you said, that could have been 300 years ago, that could easily have been a constable and an angry mob, right?
Yep.
So
it's because you didn't threaten the baby with oil and water. You're jeopardizing the whole you're jeopardizing the whole village.
It's hard out here for a witch, I'm telling you.
Dude, that could have been a demon. Did you threaten that thing with water and oil? I want to know for sure. I'll do it. Give me the
I think also, just in terms of like ghosts and things like that, you can also see a pattern for some people. I certainly have noticed a pattern with certain real extreme paranormal or supernatural experiences, accounts of them that you can kind of, as someone who can, I'm not here to like say, oh, you're lying and you're telling the truth. But in my mind, I can kind of, and in my heart, I can kind of discern between the different types of experiences. And I do think that trauma can play into the what could be perceived as a supernatural or like an alien abduction type experience. I actually had this conversation with my mom, who is pretty far out there as far as theories and thoughts. And I mean, she's very, very, I don't want to say the word liberal. Certainly she is liberal politically, but it's more of she's liberal minded in that she's open to many possibilities. And I had this conversation with her, and it was kind of about like ancient aliens or something. And I was like, oh, I've got to draw the line. I think it's I wrote about mermaids, and I'm drawing the line with ancient aliens, right?
Who said, why not? There's a philosopher that said you could choose to deny it completely, or you could just believe to dive in because you're going to die anyway. I mean, I think it was about the afterlife, about heaven and God and things.
And who is better here to teach us about the why and the why not than our kids, who are constantly questioning our every move, right?
Everyone, yeah. Why do you?
They are constantly, why can't I have that? Like, why can't we go there? And sometimes you can come up with a reason, and other times you just like, I don't even know why I'm saying this. Actually, I had kind of a fun thing that I did with my son that was, we had a yes day. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it was just, I had been really stressed. I had been under deadline, and I I've been actually traveling a bunch for research and a couple different, like gone to a couple different conferences and things like that. And I was just gone for like a week solid. And I came back and I said, you know what? We're having a yes day. And basically what a yes day is, you put whatever parameters on it that you want for your kids, right? So I said it can't be anything that costs like crazy amounts of money. It has to be something that we can achieve. Like you can't say let's hop on a plane and head to Cabo, like the and and I said it can't be anything that causes harm to you or others, right? So guess what he wanted to do?
What?
All of the things I had said no to the day before. iPad time, French fries for dinner,
Oh my
um,
goodness.
going
That's
to
my
the toy
kids.
store for 2 hours,
Toy Story.
I was just like, and they were and I realized that for him, the yes day, it's not about what you're actually really saying yes to or kids getting away with a bunch of stuff, but it's kind of transforms so the next day when I went to say no, I automatically checked myself and I thought, is this something I'm saying no to because I don't want to do it because I just am not in the mood? Or is it something that it kind of checked me with some of my, I was, feeling a little absent with my parenting. So
Mhm. How
it
your
was,
kid is like a few years older than mine. Mine are 4.
yes,
But
yeah. My son's 8.
8, so double
So
the situation. They unfortunately they have screen time. They love their tablets and stuff. It makes me feel odd, but I don't know without that stuff what their life. I mean, we didn't have that when we were kids.
I know it's such a strange thing to think of. And what I do think is that I've noticed I have nieces and nephews that are, 18, 19, 20. And when the older one, especially the 20, I think he's 22, what year is it? He's 20 this year, 21. I I noticed that he's actually more engaged and less on his phone or whatever than a lot of the adults around him. And I find that interesting because he was actually kind of given like, you can be on this or be on that or, watch TV as much as you want. And he just so some of it comes down to personality too. Will they
I
just actually
guess.
get tired of it? And I don't know. I just read an interesting essay about like judging parents when their kids are on screens. And I it was hard when I was in Ireland with him. Uh, there were a lot of times we were out to dinner and their parents with their phones. I didn't actually bring my. I had my phone. I wasn't going to bring my phone at all, but then I second guessed that for emergencies. So I just kind of deleted and silenced all the apps, and I used it just to take pictures and look up some hotel stuff here and there. And it was great because I wasn't getting all those notifications on my phone. I wasn't checking my email. I had put out of office reply, all of that jazz. I was just really present with him. And so then, because I wasn't pulling out my phone and I wasn't sitting on my computer working on a manuscript, it's like he sees me working on the computer and he doesn't know if I'm writing or I'm, looking on Craigslist. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't know the difference. He just sees me staring at the screen. So he immediately is like, "Can I get on the iPad? Can I do that?" He just wants to do what you're doing. So
That's very
that's,
interesting.
they talk about like, modeling. The best way to get your kids to read is you know, to
Read
read
to
in
them.
front of them.
Well, yeah, right. We have books everywhere. So I mean that I'm unfortunately I always have my nose stuck in a book, but we keep me like sequestered away from everybody. I don't poison their minds with my constant staring at computer monitor.
Yeah. That's well, and the other thing is that I had a house guest this summer, and that made things difficult because I really just have my office is kind of the quote unquote extra room that isn't, my bedroom or his
Mhm.
bedroom. So that was tricky because I'm kind of working more out in the open space where I like to keep it sequestered because and also as a writer and doing freelance and stuff, if you don't have that, you need that kind of that structure, um,
Yeah,
and that
absolutely. I
space,
mean, you have to have your own space. What did Virginia Woolf say?
room of
With room
one's
for her own.
own.
There you go.
Yeah.
What are you were talking about what you were working on before?
Yeah. So I
Science fiction
actually just
story
spent.
and like, yeah, tell me more.
Oh, so I just spent almost 2 weeks in Ireland, and during that time, I researched several things. I stayed in this castle that I went to this castle because I had just sort of read about, they do like some specials for Halloween or whatever. And I had also heard that it might be haunted, but I
Mhm.
didn't, it wasn't like one of those top 10 haunted hotels or anything like that. So I got lucky and I met with the manager and I had this great tour and he actually um just it was way beyond what I could have expected because not only was this place this it was built in 1180.
Oh,
It
that's
had
nice.
5-foot thick walls, this amazing Irish castle that was actually used as a defensive castle up until like the late 1800s. So it had, the thing that snaps down on the door and the outbuildings and all of the kind of rabbit warren of places where you could hide and the places for the shoot the archers to line up and all of that. But it
It's cool. We
also
don't have anything like that in New
Oh,
York City or in
it
this
was
country
so
for that matter.
incredible. I mean, 1180 was like later I was at some place that was built in the 1700s
It's crazy.
and I was kind of like, well, this is a
You
new house,
you you, can-
1700s.
you consider yourself sensitive, don't you, to the kind of paranormal activity stuff, or are you looking for the sensitivity?
Yeah, yeah, no, I would say I'm medium sensitive. I am not, and I don't mean medium as in I'm a medium. I have had enough experiences to know when something's happening, but they're pretty infrequent, especially
Mhm.
compared to a lot of people that I know and talk with. So I wasn't going there necessarily to do a ghost investigation. I just wanted to see the space and be there. Well, it turned out that this place had this incredible storied history, including the fact that it was built by the first Knights Templar, the first
Oh,
like highest ranking Knights Templar ever built built this castle. So over the years, previous owners had sort of stripped it and torn it apart looking for that Templar treasure.
mm.
And the current owner has been working to restore it. But it
Okay.
also had this great story attached to it. And true to Irish fashion, I heard three different versions and then read another one. So they all kind of were the same story, but there was a little few differences here and there. And also true to, if you ever go to Ireland, the person checking you in at the hotel, the cab driver, they're the best storytellers around, and they're not even, you're not professionals. Well, those are the best musicians, the best storytellers. So there's this
Right.
great story associated with this castle. The story I heard was that it actually took place at a castle down the way that also was owned by the family. I have heard the entire story placed in a different castle. But this castle, I noticed one of the rooms was called the Wizard Earl, and it's called Kilkea Castle, Kilkea, and it's in Kildare County, which is probably about like 30-40 minutes from Dublin, so it's pretty easy to reach. And the story is that there was a visiting magician, a court magician, and he had a monkey, like a little pet monkey. And this monkey was very attached to this little baby boy, this little kid, and would actually get very, very upset if it was taken far away from the little boy. But if they had it kind of chained near this little boy, this little baby, it was okay. So the the little boy is sleeping. There's a party going on, or a meeting or something, and the little boy is sleeping in his little castle room, and he's got the monkey in there with him. and a terrible fire breaks out. And the whole castle kind of becomes engulfed in flames. And the reason that the person who told me the story said they don't believe it was actually at Kilkee Castle, is because there was a castle that was nearby that was actually built of wood. And they think that that's where it took place because it got engulfed in flames so quickly and went up. And so 7 of his father's men and his father and his brother tried to save this baby, and eventually couldn't get to him. And the towers are falling down, and so 7 men died. Actually, these 7 knights of the Earl died trying to rescue this baby. And then the story is that then this monkey comes around the corner, and he's actually got the baby. He's holding the baby, and he's somehow rescued the baby. You could poke holes in a lot of, there's a lot of questions you could ask there, but that's the gist of the story. So then because of that, this guy grows up. He's the youngest. There's one other son, and then the father lives. So he grows up to be the heir of this huge estate, and at this time it is under English rule, of course. So basically, I think it's, I don't remember which queen it is, but she comes in and she takes all of their assets, and they're paying high taxes. Classic story, right? They're just paying all these taxes and toiling away. And an earl, essentially, at that point, is a king. It's the highest ranking you can be, because there's only one true king, and that is the King of England, and he rules all. Like that's the scenario. So the father's away, and a rumor comes back to the castle that the father is being held for treason in some tower. And so the eldest son, reacts by waging war, and basically he goes in, he tries to rescue his father, and he cuts the head off the archbishop. Bad move, right? Now the whole family, it turns out that the father actually was okay, and that was just a rumor that was kind of to set them up. So they lose everything, they strip away all the lands, and and they actually find the father and the heir, who is the eldest son, and they kill them both. Now you just have this young kid who was rescued by a monkey when he was a baby, and he's about 12 years old, and the queen she says, well, it's Queen Elizabeth. She says, you can come here and swear your allegiance to me, basically kiss my hand, and all will be forgiven. Everyone's looking at each other like, yeah, right. She's just going to imprison him. So they send him to Italy, and he goes and he lives with the Medici family. And he lives with the Medici family, and he ends up becoming like a very important member of their household. And from like 12 to 20, he lives there, and he learns alchemy, astrology, and some say he learned other dark arts when he was there, which was much more common in Italy during that time, that these kind of magical arts were being practiced. He comes back.
Magical arts just against the church's edict of what's right and wrong, right? I mean,
exactly. And so eventually he comes back, and he takes up. Oh, and then so what happens next is that Mary, Queen of Scots, becomes queen, and now it's under Catholic.
I love it.
Ireland's back under Catholic rule briefly.
There's so much potential with the story that you just told me in terms of just beginning this epic journey of this guy's life.
Absolutely incredible. He ends up being known as the Wizard Earl because he has this association with dark arts. And at this castle, you can't go in it, and it's said to be the most haunted part of the castle, but there is sort of the turret where he did his dark magic. It's totally this awesome tower that sticks up, and it's got the, ridges on the top and everything. And on the side, there is a tiny little door. And so my tour guide pointed out, he said, there's the monkey's door. So I guess he always kept a monkey with him. And this castle's kind of logo has a little monkey on it. It's just this kind of incredible story. And there's a lot of things like the dates and things like that I would actually need to look up or reference my notes when he was telling me the story, because, my knowledge of the actual dates in history was not that good, and so I was kind of trying to take notes of things to look up later. But
Would
okay,
you
and then
want to actually use him, or would you want to kind of manufacture something around a different type of similar story? Like you're
I
going to
don't know,
Scotland.
but just in addition to this, right? In addition to all of this, the Kilkee Castle has this. Um, your demonic entity guy is going to love this. It has what is called an evil eye on the side of the building. And this was something especially common in buildings in Italy, but also where could be built into castles. I mean, you've got the gargoyles that are on Notre Dame, so you have all kinds of
We
examples of these like warning things.
we
But the
keep one by
idea
our door. Actually, we keep an evil eye. Ward off
I
evil
have one
spirits.
too.
Right.
Yeah. So the idea of this kind of evil eye is that you present something so horrific that anything demonic or evil looks at it and recoils. So I had seen other evil eyes. I had not seen an example like this, and it's basically uh, a man. It's bestiality is what's depicted in this evil eye. I don't know
Mhm.
how else to put it. And it's a three-way. So it's like, oh my gosh. So naturally, that's something that would just be completely abhorrent to many people. And it's funny because you can't really tell what it is unless someone says, "Oh, look at that." And then when you kind of zoom in on it and kind of up the contrast a little bit, you can really see the lines of it. And that was supposed to turn away evil. So there were
Why
like
though?
so
Why?
many
That's
elements.
so interesting. So something grotesque, something that humans find abhorrent would turn away a demon. You would think that would attract them,
Yeah,
right?
because the idea was that this thing it would be something so horrific, something so grotesque, and that's why sometimes you see these depictions of very grotesque looking gargoyles and things like that, because it would scare off a demon or a ghost or a spirit or anything like that. That's that, and this is pretty. I mean, it's pretty graphic actually. It's something that would absolutely offend the sensibilities of 99% of the population today even.
Right. And this is
But
a
all these
thousand
people
years
just
ago.
pull their cars underneath it and have no idea it's there. It's great. It's hilarious.
Washed away by history, basically.
But yeah,
A thousand
that
years ago, we're not dealing with the Catholic Church, really, right? We're dealing with kind of an upstart organization that's kind of working its way into the riches that we know today. So it would be there, but it probably wouldn't be as clean as we know it today. It would be mixed with the what word am I looking for? The Druids, pagans.
well,
It'd be
the
mixed with the
Celt, the
paganism,
Celt, the
the
Celtic
Celts.
Celtic lore. Yep. Well, and then the other thing, just going back to your question, and that's something that I absolutely love about traveling, is that as a writer, of course, I'm gathering sort of facts. So I'm researching a book about pirates,
I
and
know. I was wanting to ask you about that, how that was working.
yeah, oh my God. So I learned about this pirate queen before I went to Ireland, and I was able to go to one of the houses where she lived and find several books that are pretty hard to find that I've never even seen in the US, that just going into a bookstore, including a graphic novel all about her life, which is great.
That's
And her name
awesome.
was Grace O'Malley, and she basically became one of the most fearsome and wealthy pirates. She ruled a huge section of the sort of mid to up northern west part of Ireland. And she kind of inherited everything from her father. And there's this great story where she stowed away to fight the English and cut off all of her hair because her father said that she was too young and she was a girl and her hair was going to get tangled in these ropes. And she chopped off all her hair and stowed away, and then just showed up and was like, "I'm here, teach me." And he had to teach her to sword fight because it was the only way he could know that she was going to be safe when they clashed with the English. And it's just this incredible story, and I've only just started researching it. So from that, not only did I find the information that I want for my book, which is more factual, and there's anecdotal stories, of course, but just kind of
Yeah.
the fashion that I do my books in. Uh,
anecdotal, right? You're taking oral histories and all that stuff into account when you
Yeah,
write
yeah,
the
I'll
story.
include anecdotal oral histories, but I met somebody who was like, "Well, my wife is a, great a descendant of hers." And I said, "Put your number down. I might want to interview you later." But
That's awesome.
in that, there is this incredible story, like that story at the Kilkee Castle, like that you can just imagine imagine the life of this pirate queen. And you hear, as someone who knows a lot about pirates, you hear a lot about Anne Bonny and Mary Read. They're kind of the two most famous female pirates. And there's a handful of others, but she had been completely off my radar until about a year and a half ago. So, you know, that's just saying that I'm not that smart, I guess, but also
Well, I
just
mean,
very,
you
very
don't
exciting.
you don't know what you don't know until you know. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
And
True,
for me, I
true.
mean, you go to these historic spaces and you stand in these spots, and there you can feel kind of in a sense of what that person would have felt in history. As an example, St. Augustine is the oldest city in our country, supposedly, and
Right.
you can go to this fort that was built to support the Spanish efforts to colonize the area and stand in this room that they would imprison people. And there were no windows, and they would leave people in there for years, and you stand there and just feel the misery of this moment for that human that died hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
What
Was in there. I
about
mean,
you living across from Greenwood Cemetery? I mean, that's like for me, cemeteries have always been a place not just of like sort of I found them as a young woman living alone in a city. I found cemeteries to be a safe place where I could go if I needed to cry, if I just needed to like sit and breathe. And it's different than being on a park bench. People leave you alone in a cemetery.
yeah,
So as a young girl, I was sort of, as a kid, we went to them a lot, and we would imagine who these people were, or talk about it, or look at the different headstones and talk about the features. As a young woman, I found them to be this kind of place of sanctuary. And then as a writer, I've always found them to be endless fodder, because every
I
person, whether
know,
they're
right?
famous or not, you've got a name for your character. You can imagine who they are. Why was a street named after this person you've never heard of? And everywhere
Yeah,
I
especially in the
travel,
age
I
of
go to
Google,
cemeteries.
right?
Yeah,
Plug in a
yes.
name, do a search. Like I know who this dude is now. There's a random. I mean, what it's so interesting in Greenwood, they have a center person, like the grandfather, whatever his name was, and then they have his wife, and then around them they have the kids, and then around them they have the grandkids, and it just spreads down this hill because they're buried in a tomb, so the headstones are on top, I
Oh
guess.
my gosh.
But you can look up the grandfather and turn out he's this big engraver. He's got a whole story on Wikipedia. I mean, before he was nobody. Now he's got a whole history that you can look into. And I think that's what's awesome about Greenwood is it's been very, very researched. It's very meticulous in terms of who's buried there.
Yeah, there's a lot of famous or infamous people buried there,
Boss Tweed is buried here. It's crazy.
right? And isn't Leonard Bernstein?
Yep.
Yep.
He's right. He's like catty corner from where I'm at right now. It's a very interesting
That is
experience being up here.
that is the great thing about, and I visit cemeteries everywhere I go, and that's part of it. I do feel like it is an anchor to the place, and I think people, oh, it's morbid. I don't want to walk through a cemetery, but it's really an
Morbid.
anchor to the history of the place,
Hell yeah. There was
and
have you ever
it's
been to the catacomb? God, the monks. If you know the name, I'll be really impressed. In
catacombs
Rome.
in Paris or
No,
the one in Kutna.
no, it's a church, it's a chapel, and in the basement they have these monks, the Capricorn, Capricorn, who the hell knows? These monks built these chandeliers out of bones.
Oh, well, so I've been to a place called it's in Kutna Hora in the Czech Republic, and it's an ossuary, and it has a
Yes, it's an
chandelier made
ossuary.
out of every bone in the human body.
Yep. I mean, I don't
Um,
know. This is an ossuary too. It's just human
yep,
bones,
I
and
think
they've posed
is this
them
one in Italy?
in Rome. Yeah.
In Rome. I have not been to that one, but I have been to one in Paris that is full of there's thousands
Right.
of
And then the
bones
quote
and
is
skeletons there.
we were what you are, and we are what you will become. And there's no,
Wow.
and that's basically the freaking quote. And it's like jaw dropping. It's like, goddamn, dude, you had skin and feelings and thoughts. And somebody put you in a boiling pot and took all of that away from you and left you as a skull for me to look at with this thing clung into your skeletal hands that awakens me to the idea that one day I'm going to be just like you, a skull in the ground, potentially, or ash in somebody's basement, or who knows what happens to urns after generations.
Ah, yes, there's that aspect as well of, that ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It's like we all go here.
We all
It
fall
whether we
down.
go to a cemetery or we get built into the side of a uh, you know, heart-shaped skeleton wall or whatever it is that becomes of us. There's certainly
Yeah.
that aspect of it. And I think that at our heart, maybe at our root and as writers, this is perhaps our reason.
Forte.
I don't
I mean,
know,
it is
but
a
it's
forte.
the idea that there's a certain level of immortality. That's why you want a big
Hmm.
headstone, right, with your name carved on it. There's a certain that's why you
Or
wanna
is
create the
there?
most magnificent,
You've been to
um
downtown Manhattan and you've seen how is it called? There's a cemetery basically by the bowl. You probably walk past it if you've done the tourist thing. And all the headstones are blank. I mean, they're 400, 500 years old. There's no names on them anymore.
Yeah, actually, and that's very true of a lot of pioneer. There are tons of in California. There are tons of pioneer graves that are just unmarked, and
Yep.
over time, sometimes someone might be able to identify who that is, but there's just so many unmarked graves. But I guess my
Just makes
point
me
is
think that
that
it's not permanent, but we're built on it. I
it's
think I
not permanent,
mentioned
but don't you
20
think that
generations
to a
ago.
certain extent the fear of our own death and that desire to achieve that immortality, that vampire-like desire is what feeds a lot of our creativity at its
Yeah,
core.
and it turns out like your contribution is minuscule. It matters so much because if you think about the human race being marred in mud, trying to free itself, every little bit of traction is helping the overall goal, which is what I guess the
Ah,
meaning of life. What are we
right,
trying for? What are we
right,
striving for? But we're doing
right.
it regardless. And
And
Isaac
you're
Newton,
constantly kind of challenging yourself with, is what I'm doing even worthwhile? Is anyone even listening to this damn thing? And the undeniable desire and drive to just do it anyway because you can't not do it. As an artist can't paint, as a writer, is miserable if they can't write or tell stories so it's this constant secure in our insecurity that we
we only have a limited time. Get it done while you can because you might not have an opportunity to finish it. And you're going to leave it to your kids regardless. I mean, we just learned this lesson. Me and my wife are, she lost her mom to a horrible disease and we had to pick up the reins. We didn't want to. There was a house that we couldn't let disappear, would not disappear without effort. The legacy remains. It wasn't a great legacy. It was in Shakespeare. She didn't leave a portfolio of work that we could sell. She left a legacy that marred us in financial hardship. You know what I mean? Sometimes
yeah.
it's not a good thing that you're leaving behind, but you're going to leave something behind.
Something's getting left behind. Yeah, yeah.
So what's up?
Oh,
What's on the horizon for you?
looking forward. um, so I have I sent 3 book proposals in this week.
Oh, good for you.
Um, so one's a pirate book, and then I had a couple of other ideas. One I think is very viable, probably too long, so I'm not sure if it's the right one for this publisher at this time. And one that is not fully developed, but also a lot of fun.
Mhm.
So I won't say what they are just in case that actually happens. And then
The pirate story.
the pirate
That's
book is
6 months in the
partially
making.
done. So
Partially done. Okay.
the I mean the I have, I guess, a very, very solid foundation for the pirate book. But the thing is, certainly when you're, when you're writing fiction, this is not the case. But when you're writing a book that is, I mean, I'd probably get it's not exactly nonfiction, it's folklore, but it's research, it's collections of stories, it's my own stories, it's facts, tidbits, that's that type of book, which is considered nonfiction in the greater category, right?
Yeah.
Um, when you send, I have learned to not get too attached to my vision because the publisher may have some input and the editor, I have an awesome editor, and
Yeah.
her input can actually change. It's like when somebody reads your story, and they say, I really like that one part, and they point out this part that you didn't even really, that's not your favorite part. Or they say, we've been talking. There's also a lot of synchronicity I have found in publishing, and and I think that people say right time, right place, right, all the time. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you just got a good editor, a good agent, but it can really come down to synchronicity. And as someone who has worked in the publishing and editing field for almost 20 years, I can tell you that there have been so many times at an editorial brainstorm when an idea has come up and that's it's come up again, and then you get a pitch for it, or you have an idea and it turns out that the editors say, oh, we were just talking about you, we were just wondering what your next thing was. And there's a certain amount of synchronicity that happens, and it has to do with trends and what people are buying and what people think and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes it
Mhm.
just comes down to, just there's a reason I withheld that proposal for 2 months. I don't know what that reason is. I felt not ready, but multiple times I went to hit send, and you'd think, "Oh, it's a slam dunk for you. You've done all these other books for them and they know what to expect." But that I felt that still needed to present a proposal that was full and complete, that had some excerpts, that was really like, this is what I want to do, but knowing that a section of that could get rejected. And that's all part of the process. You can agree to that. You can disagree to that. Usually you agree on that before you sign a contract or anything. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
so that's
jealous
what's
of
on.
that. That type
Um,
of effort would be amazing. I'm
well, if it
like
makes you feel any better, I got my royalty check for the year and it was $66. So my
nice.
yeah, $66. That's right. Mama's going grocery shopping.
God, man, everything in our society is built on writing. Every single thing. And I guess it's just because it's the foundation of creativity, I guess, that we get paid shit. Because it doesn't seem like anybody really wants to give writers any money. I don't know.
That's why
Interesting.
you gotta have the hustle. You can't just do one thing. I mean, I would love to be the person that only writes these kinds of books, but that's why I sent in so many proposals. Because in order to be that person, and I take on side jobs all the time. I take on editing, and I actually have I just edited my first novel where I actually edited it from beginning to end, and I've edited a ton of nonfiction, especially in the esoteric
Mhm.
world. But this is the first time I've edited a very different novel, not even something I would say that if you had told me the description, I might not have even picked this book up, but it was really good, which I was delighted that it was really good. And my feedback was actually valuable. And, hopefully this writer gets it published, but it felt good to also just kind of see how someone else does that. Like, she had this great way of, I think, by engaging me and paying me, she forced herself to finish the book.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody's got their tools. You said I'm very deadline driven, but you and I have talked about this before, because I think you have the fiction discipline that I really, really lack. My nonfiction stuff has a structure, but my fiction is an area of my life, and somewhere that I hope in the near future I am developing that more fully, because ultimately I would love to be writing novels. I think that would be isn't that that's probably every writer's dream. Every writer starts out saying, "This is going to be the best novel ever," and sometimes it's just a
I
really
don't
good
know.
article.
I'm on my 4th long work right now. It's definitely a novella. I know that for sure. But it is kind of like torture at the same time. It's really fun having the idea, okay, this is going to be a novel. I can't wait. And then you're 20,000 words into it, and you feel like, okay, how many more times can I slam my head against this brick wall? And then you're up at 3:00 in the morning slamming your head against that brick wall again.
Yep. Yep.
And nobody cares. I think that's the biggest problem is that, I tell you it's a story about this, that, and the other thing, and you're like, okay. Nobody's going to buy it right now. And potentially when it's done with a draft, nobody's going to buy it. And then 10 years from now, when I write another draft of it, probably nobody's going to buy it. But my kids might be able to sell it. Maybe.
Hey, anyone listening to this, make him an offer right now.
I mean, your mom if she leaves you behind a legacy or a portfolio filled with art, what would you do with it?
Oh,
She probably will, right? I mean, she's very.
she already
She's
has
very,
that. I mean,
right?
I may have mentioned before when I go to her house, I beg paintings off of her because I love her paintings. And she's writing a book now. She's been a writer and a storyteller, just written these incredible. She should just make up stories. Would tell us a bedtime story, and she would make up this epic story. And over the years, she wrote them down for us as kids. And now she's got this great story idea. It's probably for maybe 8 to 12-year-old kids, a chapter book idea. And I could see it completely being a bestseller. And I'm just so proud of her that, she's 76 and she just got this idea for this way that she can actually create this story.
Mm-hmm.
And she's doing research, and she's been a writer her whole life and yet never done anything like this, and an artist her whole life, and I'm sure she's drawing little pictures for it. And I mean, I honestly, like, if I found that today and she was gone, I would probably self-publish it for my siblings and I. Well, I have many siblings.
In the world, or no?
Yeah, she's contributed stories to a couple of my books too.
You self-publish it for the world to enjoy too, or just for your siblings?
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah, I mean, I would probably. She said, "Well, you have to be my editor," and I said, "Well, duh."
Did you
gotta
know
write
the
something
person
for me to edit? So
Yeah, right.
we also, as writers, are you in a writers group?
Yeah, several actually. I mean, I'm always paying attention, but I have a horrible time making friends.
I know, because I actually have kind of been struggling with that. Like, I've done a couple of online things.
Yeah,
And
Zoetrope,
I
if you're
find that
looking.
because I spend so much time online anyway doing it,
Yeah.
it's just like, I and so I've actually been a little intimidated, but I do wanna join. There's an actual physical group that meets like 2 Tuesdays a month or something,
Uh-huh.
but it's a physical group, and I haven't done anything like that in probably 15 years. And
Since
I know
undergrad,
it can
right?
be
I
really
mean,
beneficial, but the
yeah.
woman whose novel I just edited, she said that there's a part in the novel that changes the entire novel, and she said it was a suggestion from someone at her writers group that she
I
put in
do
this other point of view.
I
And
do Zoetrope on the internet, which is an actual full-on workshop where you
what
have to read.
about, what is it called? NIMO, which is coming up. National,
National Writers Month or whatever it is.
yeah, it's like novel writing month. I think it's
I don't know.
November. It's
I
like,
thought about it, but
oh my gosh,
I don't
we
have the
should do it.
problem with the motivation. I
Yeah,
have the
but it's
problem with
not just
the
the motivation, you're supposed to finish it. That's the
that's the
trick
problem,
with
isn't it?
it. Yeah, you start on the first day and you end on the last day of November, and you're supposed to have a finished novel. Now, of course, obviously, it's up to you whether that happens or not. But the idea is that all these writers around the world are doing the same thing.
First
And
drafts, though.
everybody's you can join local groups online. I haven't
That's the
done it, and I'm
problem for
thinking,
me is that
am I
it's
gonna
not
do
a
it?
it's not an actual novel. It's a first draft, right? So you finish the month, maybe
Don't
you have a
matter.
40,000 word novel, but you still got to spend the
Don't matter
next
none,
year.
sir. That's the easy part, is going back
No,
to
my
it later.
God, that's the hell. That's what I'm in right now. I've got 4 of
Well,
those.
maybe
I've
we
got
can be
4
in a
finished
writers group
novels.
together, because for
Right.
me, the
Let's do it.
struggle is getting all of those stories from beginning to end. And
Do you
for
have
you, it's not
do you
the
have a
beginning
first
to end.
reader? Do you have somebody that reads your stuff first before anybody else? No. That helps.
Don't.
That
My
really helps.
editor so it's so different because with my books, yes, my editor reads it first. And
Yeah.
it's totally this anxious feeling where is she gonna like it? Is she not gonna like it? Sometimes I share excerpts with friends, like from an introduction but I usually it's a very private thing between my editor and I. I'm lucky that I have this wonderful editor. However, and she's very encouraging. However, I with my fiction, I
You're
don't.
guarded.
I'm
Are you
very
guarded?
guarded. I'm very
Don't be
guarded.
guarded. Why are you guarded?
I'm
What's in there
like,
that you want to protect? It should be about characters and about a story and about descriptions that are removed from yourself that do nothing but support the overall attempt that you're trying to make, right? So why are you guarded? Don't
I
put
don't
any
know.
stuff in there that
feel
you need
like
to be
I'm
guarded about.
clueless. I feel like I never know where to go. I sit down and I write, and then I don't know how to connect the dots.
What do you like to
So,
read, fiction-wise?
I like to read a lot of sort of crime, like some sort of like dark crime stories. Those are
Right,
my
one of
favorite.
those.
Psychological thrillers where the
Okay.
problem is really you at the core, right?
Uh-huh.
Some science fiction.
Some science fiction.
Um, and yeah, that's kind of what I like to read for pleasure. I like right now I'm actually reading a book by this Irish author. Her name is Tana French, and all of her stories up until this one have been about a crime that it's from the point of view of like these different detectives. And what I love about her is that you cannot tell what gender she is when she's writing. She's master of points of view, female, male. It's all very believable. And so I think she's got a real craft going there. And this
That's important.
story, there is a crime in it, but it seems to be very psychological and trauma driven, which is
Mhm.
interesting. I don't know where it's going, and it's feeling deeply personal to me.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of inspiring me in that other way. I do think you need to read other writers to get inspired. Not
Oh,
saying
yeah.
you should take their ideas, but you can kind of get their technique and just see that there's just something so wonderful in creativity and sharing in other people's creativity. And as writers, especially, we isolate ourselves
Mhm.
and we don't
Well, I
have
mean,
that.
that's what one thing you got to consider. And I think a lot of people who think of it as just art and creativity need to also consider it as a business too, right? I mean, if you're going to have a lemonade stand, you have to produce lemonade to sell to people who want lemonade. So you have to consider what you're doing isn't necessarily just, doing art, but also doing business too. And if you sit there and be nervous about what you're producing in terms of art, then you're failing the business side of things because ultimately what you want is a product. If you have a lemonade stand and you don't have a lemonade, then you really don't have a lemonade stand. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
there's a guy that I get to talk to. His name is Ken Scholes. He publishes with Tor. And
Hmm.
he said the best thing to me. He's like, a story is only finished when you sell it. So, I mean, we can do
Interesting.
NaNoWriMo, right? We can write novels once a month for the next 16 years, but we're not done yet because nobody's going to buy those first drafts. And what I agonize about every single day is the 20,000 words that I've already written. Are they good enough to sell? What the fuck is the industry doing that is selling? Why
Right.
aren't I doing that? What do I need to do that? That's what I do
And then
every single day.
that's when you think I need an agent. I don't need an agent
I
to
don't know if
sell
an
my
agent's not going to make me a better writer, right? The
agent's not gonna
agent,
make you no, exactly. The agent
nor is an
is
editor, I don't
the
think.
door. I will disagree with you on that. I think that an editor can make you a better writer. I have been on both ends of that. And it's not that it's changing who you are fundamentally as a writer, but it gives you this perspective
I guess that's true. That is
of,
100%.
and it's
If my
I'm not
wife
talking
didn't
about
read,
someone who comes in and corrects your grammar. I'm
exactly,
talking
but
about somebody who
you want
comes
to
in,
impress somebody,
looks
right?
at
You
this
want
and
somebody to
goes,
be,
"Why does that
you want to
happen
excite
here?"
somebody.
Or
Yeah,
"You left
exactly.
out this really important detail." that I
This is
think
boring.
that you then tell later, because as a writer, you jump around and maybe you forget the
I'm
sequence of
not
things. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Oh, this is
So
exciting. Or God, when you're watching someone read something you've written and they laugh, like
oh God,
that's
that's
better, isn't it?
yeah, right?
What did you laugh
Oh,
at?
or what I love when I have when people tell me that they that okay, so this summer I actually was on CBS Sunday Morning.
Really?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. They wanted to do a piece on mermaids, and the producer reached out to me. She called me and she said, we would send a film crew to your house. And I was sort of aghast and delighted and horrified
Jesus
all
Christ,
in
Varla.
once.
That's
And
so
it
awesome.
happened very quickly. They came out, they filmed, and Faith Saley, who is a host on there, and she's also on like Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And we totally bonded over Grace O'Malley, it turns out. But she came to my house and she did the interview, and it was this intimate crew, and it was just so incredible, and it was just this great experience. But do you know what was the biggest delight? They all wanted a copy of my book, even at the end of the interview, even the camera guy. And it was that, to me, was so incredibly flattering, because it meant that they liked the writing. They didn't even like the topic. Yeah, they were
They
into
liked
mermaids,
you. They
and
liked you.
and
That's
they
got to be the
liked those
best thing
stories,
ever.
and said, "I'll take a picture of that, I'll
Take a
take a
picture of
copy of
you.
that."
I think that's
Yep.
what it is ultimately, is that your writing is connected to the personality of yourself. And whether
And
those
isn't
people,
that the thing? If as a
right?
writer, you can convey
100%.
your personality and your signature into your work,
100%.
then you know
Well,
you found
no,
your voice,
not
right?
even. I don't think it has to convey itself into its works. I think Neil Gaiman can sell his work, but his personality sells it
Oh,
also.
I love him. He does like rogue book signings. You know that? Like he does guerrilla book signings. Like if he sees his book in bookstores, he goes and he signs them. Not as
Mhm.
like a formal thing, but he'll like just take a pen and sign his own books. I just love it. It's like I would totally do that. I haven't run into
And
my
that's
books
a
aren't as
personality thing,
popular,
right?
so yeah, but that
Oh,
definitely
I've met
plays
your
into
books from my
it.
show.
Yeah, that's
I've
nice. But I do
actually
think
moved.
as a writer, any writer, if your voice is consistent and plays into these different topics and different things you're writing, it's your signature voice. That's what makes us writers. That is our craft, and what we're trying to develop is our voice as a writer, our real writer's voice, which is unique and individual, cannot be replicated, cannot be duplicated, even if somebody tries to claim they're channeling you through the Ouija board.
That's very interesting. I mean, my great grandmother said one thing to me that really stuck out. She said, "Do one thing and do it good." So you do one thing really good. Do you really want to multitask that into something else as well? Like you capitalize on these unique historical literature, the occult type of situations, right? When this guy was saying who you were, the thing that popped into my head about you is that you were probably the best read literature of the occult person I've ever met. When I took that class in college, you're the professor I wanted to have. You know what I mean?
Maybe they'll give
And
you like an honorary degree at some folkloric university in Scotland or something.
PhD, right now. I mean, you've only written 5 books. I mean, you have a lifetime to keep doing this. That stuff doesn't happen until you're 60, so who
Did you
knows
ever
what's going to
find the
happen.
comment? We never actually.
Oh yeah, I stopped looking, but
Yeah,
let's
it's
see.
okay. I'll find
It
it. I'll
wasn't
look
it
at it
wasn't
later.
the trauma one. Somebody said sub me there. It must have been we were talking about the occult. So let me take a look.
Yeah, well, we talk about the occult a lot. I mean, it's a topic that it's kind of my jam. So
It's kind of your jam. So you're gonna work on some speculative fiction, but ultimately, the pirate book is the project that
so right. So in my
materialize
mind,
stuff.
actually, there are two me's. There's the one that there's a known thing that I write, and that is these kind of structured books on topics like pirates and oddities and all the things that I love to read about. And then there's the sort of dark, horrible inner demon part of me that comes across in longer fiction, I guess. If you think my mind is dark, When you read my nonfiction books, it's probably unbearable to many people in my in my fiction, in my works of fiction. So because
Maybe that's what's so interesting about you, actually, that you come off as having a veneer which covers something kind of juicy. Like you kind of want to catch you off guard so that you let some of that stuff seep out. So
yeah, so I slip up and
yeah.
then I show my alien eyes or something.
Something. Not necessarily. I wonder, honestly. I mean, I like talking to you, but there's definitely something in there that you're not letting out.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know if any of us want that to come out. It's come out before, and you know.
You had to move to Minnesota.
Yeah, let's just say, yeah, we had to do a fierce and searching moral inventory for that one.
So
I
wanted. What's up? I wanted to start this podcast with you. I mean, how do you think I should start the podcast going forward? Do you think a guest should like introduce themselves, or I think I've been kind of playing it like very loose.
Well, do you ever listen to like the Mark Maron podcasts?
He talks for a while before he does a guest. And
yes, so I think he talks too much.
He talks too much
before he before he has guests, and he talks about himself a lot. But I do like, now in the beginning he would talk about stuff, but he was still, so his thing was like he was a jerk when he was drunk, and then he kind of started talking with people that he had met, and now he was sober, and it's sort of a way of him like reconciling his past. So he would have these great moments where he would kind of, it was like sort of introspective. But in that process, he would introduce the person. So I think it's nice to have even just like a little, like all the other shows I've been on, people usually just say, "Oh, our guest today," and they'll read the bio. But I think you could do something much more personal than that with your guest. That is just like a very short. I think that's fine.
So, I mean, I want to put something in the beginning of this podcast so that instead of wanting it at the end, I want people to know who you are and why I'm talking to you.
I think that's a great idea, because your audience isn't really, some of your audience might be coming to you because it's me, but most of your audience is coming to you because it's you.
Yeah, it seems like that's what's working out more or less. I mean, I'll get a big bump from a guest, but if I'm not doing some marketing, nothing's happening.
Yeah, and it's just, it's like, your people are listening to your podcast, they're subscribed to your podcast, and some of the interviews they might be interested in, some they might not. It just kind of depends on the topic, and that's how I listen to podcasts. I like a podcast, and then I'll skip it if I don't, if it's not but sometimes, a good podcast. I
skip over the intros all the time. I skip over, and anytime they break for like a commercial, I skip over that.
No,
too.
I skip that too. I know.
Can't stand
it. They still get their ad space. They still get their money for it. So.
But yeah, the stupid the guy who's paying for the advertisements, what an idiot. Nobody wants that stuff. Nobody's listening to it. I have no clue what you're trying to sell me. Stop doing it. Go away.
Have you listened to Conan O'Brien's podcast, the way he does his ad spots? It's clever because you actually want to listen to them, because he just makes them so ridiculous that people actually listen.
Yeah. Joe Rogan's kind of like that too in a way, but I skip over him anyway.
Totally. I know. Still skip it.
It's like, he makes it so easy. It's 10 minutes. Like, okay, skip 10 minutes. We're good.
I also think that you probably have, after the fact, you probably have thoughts about like a summary of what it was, or what you think we talked about, and there's probably sections that you would just edit out. So I feel like you would have a good commentary in the beginning. I wouldn't be afraid of.
I want you to introduce yourself, actually. I mean, what about like at the end of the podcast?
What if you're just like, so
how do you want to introduce yourself? Yeah, exactly. Who are you? Do you want to practice with me? Just like do a quick intro that I'll tag on to the beginning, based on what we talked about, what you want to stand out, and how people will. I don't know. So I don't know. Let's say, who are you?
I am Varla Ventura.
Why are you here?
for the lively conversation. Stimulating company.
That's basically why I enjoy talking to you so much.
I completely agree. I am an author of folkloric and paranormal topics, including vampires, werewolves. Now working on a book about pirates, and I think that ultimately you and I at surface don't have that much in common, but when we started talking we realized how much we have in common and how similar our minds can be and how the differences in our minds actually can play off each other, and so we've sort of cultivated a unique podcast friendship.
Yeah, I shouldn't have you on my show 100%. You deserve better. Honestly.
I always think, God, what did I ramble about? And did I actually, is that on record now?
I get to publish a 3-hour podcast.
Up, or did I actually look that date up? I might have just made that up.
Yeah, when hell will start for both of us is when we'll actually get an audience listening to our past podcasts.
Hey, that comment is a good thing. That means somebody listened from beginning to end.
Oh, I found it, by the way.
And was disturbed enough to comment.
Exactly. Here it is. You ready? Jeremy N. He said this a week ago. There are no such things as ghosts. Well, actually, he said there are no such thing as ghosts. Whatever paranormal activity this lady thinks she is, all has. I don't know this guy's grammar. Whatever paranormal activity this lady thinks she has is all demonic. I hope she sees this before the end, as we are all living in the last days. Amazing to me how some people claim to have the ability to communicate.
I'm good with demons. I am one with demons, man. I am okay with demons.
So. We talk about demons all the time.
I know, right? It's like, that's okay.
He says, and false spirits, and knowing they are.
Cut this part or not, it's up to you. But the person who kind of came after me, one of the things she did is she shared this picture of me, and it said, here's the witch whore who said you should pour oil on children. And I thought, God, that's such a compliment. I'm a witch and a whore? God, that's like double whammy.
You didn't take it as an insult to the horror part?
Oh, I was like, whatever. I don't have a problem with that word. Like that's what you're gonna throw at me? Tell me I'm a terrible writer.
Like, yeah, oh my God, exactly, right? I was just thinking about how horror. It doesn't bother me. It's just a word I would use. I probably used it many times, insulting people in my car because they cut me off. I mean, it means nothing to me. Basically, any curse word means nothing to me. Just a word I say. But you're right, though. Like, if you want to hurt me, if you want to cut me, you
can have a lot of fun with that word. So
say I'm a horrible writer. Say that I suck at this or that or the other thing that I really take personally. I mean, there are ways to hurt me.
Say that I say the word too much or whatever.
You're very repetitious in your writing, but that stings. Like, oh no, I try not to do that.
Like, yeah, insult my craft. Don't insult my my religion.
Don't insult my writing. Don't insult my efforts. I mean, yeah, we're giving them an in though, but they know that. They know that if they insult the writing, they get right to the soul of it. That's what we do it for. That's why any artist puts on paint on canvas to get some kind of oohs and ahs, fireworks.
That.
What'd you say? I lost you there for a second.
I said, true that.
Not true that. I mean, you should go. I'll send you the link. It's a long comment. It's over it's like a paragraph of tons of cool stuff.
Okay, so I do get a lot of I get a lot of demonic entity comments. You'd be surprised.
With Jesus Christ mixed into the middle.
And the thing is it's usually people who are trying to save me from, like, I'm an ignorant child that doesn't understand that link didn't work.
Yeah, no. Check it was messed up.
Check the YouTube channel.
I sent you a link to my let me hide. Oh, there it is. It's letting me. I got to be smarter than the technology. That's what it is.
But it's usually people who, like, I'm sure that guy is just really, like he says, just try and realize it. Oh, here it is. Whatever paranormal activity this lady thinks she has is all demonic. I hope she sees this before the end. As we are living in the last days. Amazing to me how some people claim to have the ability to commune with demons and false spirits, knowing they are leading others astray. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yet they cannot talk about Jesus Christ and why he died, because he did not die for me.
We
This
can
one
talk
is
about
of the
Jesus
world
Christ.
and false
Do you
with
want to?
inch
Do you
or
want to?
finish. You've been forewarned. And to not seek him with the time you have. God, this could be my brother, to be honest with you. What's the guy's name?
Jeremy N.
Jeremy or Jeremy?
Jeremy.
Jeremy. Okay. No, I don't. I want to see his profile now. Honestly, this is the kind of thing that I have a brother who worries about wrestling with demons and the end times. Oh no, that's not my brother. Oh, so sad. That
He
lady
lives.
who totally stalked me, she lives in New Orleans, and she's totally like a wingnut, like a religious and um, right wing
So is this
wingnut.
guy. He's got
Yeah.
7 subscribers though. What are they subscribing to?
I know you want to subscribe and find out.
No, I'm scared. He
Oh,
scares me a little bit. He's got no hair
I
on his
think you
head.
should respond just like, "Thanks for listening."
Oh, very true. I mean, at least Dad, we have talked about religion before. We talked about Valentine and Valentine's Day stuff, which is always fantastic. I don't know how you were raised. It sounds like you were raised by somebody who didn't really believe in organized religion. But me, I got raised in the Catholic Church. So I'm all about talking about the Jesus myth. If you want to do that someday, like totally break that apart
Oh, I
in terms of
don't.
your
I don't.
perspective, you
I
don't want to.
actually. Well, my point of view is pretty unpopular, probably, especially amongst your uh, Jeremy ends out there. Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
he's not mine. He's just out there, but I would love to hear it,
yeah,
honestly.
but he listens. So that's. I mean, there's a certain, even an insult can be flattering in its own way. You know what I mean? Like that's.
It's cracking me
It's
up.
interesting to me that this person bothered to listen to the whole thing or a good chunk of it. Maybe he
He
didn't
must have
listen to
gotten
the
some.
whole
He
thing.
must have carried away some interesting information. Actually, I heard recently that people who are very stodgy in their opinion are emotionally immature. They're somehow stunted in their emotional growth, and they aren't able to
Okay, so then
get
I
out of
I
that.
think that's true, and then I catch myself when I have those flare-ups of like, this person's just a Jesus freak or whatever. I try and catch myself and say, okay, now you're kind of dismissing their point of view faster than they dismissed yours. So then I'm the emotionally stunted one. So
Yeah,
I
but
know this
you're
kind of thing can
uncomfortable.
be this kind
You're being uncomfortable with negativity though, because he's saying no, you're wrong. You're saying, well, I don't know if I'm right because I don't know shit, and I don't know if what you're saying is right either. But you sound stupid and ignorant, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go with stupid.
I just think it's funny. I mean, honestly, like if I go down in a fiery pit of hell with demons all around me, to me that is like a party. I am good with that.
What a waste, honestly, right? I mean, you have the whole universe, and that's what you get. It seems like that would be
Ooh,
self-created
ooh,
more
I'm
than
a woman
anything
of the
else.
world. You know what that means? That's code for whore.
I don't know. I guess I am too. I'm
It
fuck
is.
it.
It is. It's code for whore. My brother has used that term with me before. Not that
Woman
my
of the
brother is
world.
called whore, but he says he had a girlfriend for a while. His wife passed away, and then he had this kind of crazy girlfriend, and he kept referring to her as being of the world. And the thing is he's describing this girl, and she sounds a lot like me. She's got a lot of tattoos. She likes like heavy music. I'm like, oh my god, this is really weird. But maybe you're just telling me these things because it's a way of you telling me this message about how because he's listened to me on radio shows and stuff before, and I'm sure he thinks I'm going to hell. He thinks my
Is
mom's
he
going to
really
hell.
religious? Does he really
My
believe
oldest
all
brother
that
is
stuff?
really, really religious and actually called my mom up on Mother's Day and he's born again. That's this guy
So
is
he wasn't
born
always
again.
like that.
Jeremy N is born again. I guarantee you. The
I
born
guarantee you
agains
it's
are the
wisdom too.
ones that feel that they owe it to everyone to convert and change everyone because it
Well,
worked for
isn't that their
them.
mission, isn't it? They're
Yeah, that's
supposed to
their
do that. They
mission.
don't get into
Yeah,
heaven.
it's their mission.
They
And it's
don't get
just
what
like,
they're
yawn, what is this? The 1600s? So bored with this narrative. It's just like, come on, you guys.
I mean,
You've
honestly,
been saying this over and over again, and it's just not working.
We appreciate what they're what they're avoiding, though, because we
I'm
actually
sorry
dive
that you,
into it.
because I feel that he sort of threatened you here because he is telling you to repent or perish, and that you have been warned. So now when you have me on again, I wonder, is he going to come back?
Probably.
Maybe it'll be an interesting discourse.
I have not turned from any of my wicked ways at all,
I
unfortunately.
know. I know. I'm happy to hear that. I missed you.
I'm the same as I've always been. Probably worse. I'm a little meaner. I'm a little less patient now. Every time I have a surgery, I think about, what could happen if the anesthesiologist messes up. You can't avoid not doing it. So, I mean, if I wanted to accept Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior, I would have already done it.
Right? That's
I
when you
haven't
would
done
have
it.
done it, right?
Yeah,
That
exactly.
was the 0 hour.
When people look death in the face is when they truly become the person they, I don't know.
Not the person they're really meant to be.
Yeah, exactly, I guess.
You got 60
I don't know.
seconds left. Make it count, right?
I mean, I'm jealous in a way. If he really fully believes what he believes, that's interesting because it eliminates a lot of anxiety, it eliminates a lot of fear and uncertainty, though normal human things.
Yeah, yeah, I know it does. I have found myself, and there have been very lonely times in my life. For example, moving to a new community and feeling a little jealous of, like people who go to church and they kind of, no matter where you go, you have this built-in community.
Belief structure.
People who
You're
are
right
of
where the head of it.
very close-knit magical communities have the same thing. Oh, I found my people. And I have
It is the
always
same
sort of
thing,
been
though,
on
isn't
the
it?
fringe. I've always been a solitary in those ways. Though I think my people are out there. There are many like-minded people, and I have my group of people that I completely connect with, but we're not like going to maybe we're going to concerts together, but still I feel like I have felt jealousy on more than one occasion of not being the kind of person that can subscribe to that and go along with that.
Well, I mean, as a person that's reaching midlife, I don't know how old you are. Let's say you're at midlife. You start.
Let's
You
just say,
start. I mean, you could be in your 30s still. I'm not going to assume
oh
anything.
no, I'm in my 40s.
But you're developing independence in terms of your view of the world, and it becomes, for me anyway, it becomes irritating when somebody wants to put their own 2 cents into it. Like, no, you're wrong. Here's what I think, and it's like, dude, shut up. I've spent
Yeah,
42 years in this
I
body
don't
and
I
deserve to
don't
have an
mind
opinion.
discussing things. I don't mind, I mean, honestly, like none of this is insulting to me in any way. I've heard it before. I'll hear it again, and it makes me laugh and it makes me feel good about who I am. Which is
Yeah, I mean,
exactly what a demonic person would say.
you say this guy came from me, but I think he was there for you. I mean, he's obviously attracted to what you offer, personality wise, and probably he's been in your sphere before. There was
Yeah.
another woman that I've invited on the podcast sometimes, Nancy Quinn. She is one of these type of guys that will follow her from video to video and make some kind of nonsensical comment every single time. It's like, it's a lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, something to do. It's like if you can't, um, I don't know, if you can't be part of that person's close knit group in one way, you'll try and be part of their group in another way.
He wants to knock you down because he can't have something more.
Honestly, I feel like this person genuinely wants to save my soul and yours.
You
Actually, he
think
genuinely
that?
wants to save your
You think
soul.
he's an
My soul is
altruist?
lost. My
Do you
soul
think
is
he's a
already lost.
knight of Jesus Christ out there to save people, to make
That's
good?
what
Or do you
I
think he
think that's
wants to
how
make.
he perceives himself, as like a
I love
Viking
this.
knight. Yeah.
Jeremy stepped into our lives. Jeremy stepped into our lives, and we're turning him into a character. I mean,
Aw,
he's no
Jeremy.
longer a human being. And I love it. I can see us doing this at a diner and just having like hours of fun.
Totally.
I'm losing my voice though, so I
I
think we
know,
have
I know.
to
We gotta cut it. We're going on 2 hours here, and
yeah.
I gotta run out and meet a
I tried
friend in
to
about
I
10
was thinking
minutes,
like
so
30 minutes ago, I was like, I'm gonna cut it off. We're gonna have an hour
no.
podcast this time.
We gotta practice. But
We're
we
gonna do it
missed you
again.
for so long, and I missed you. I really was thinking about you. I knew you were going through some health stuff. I knew that that's what was happening. So I was just kind of.
I'm just happy I can do it and have you
Yeah,
back on
me
and be
too.
able to talk.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, let's do it again. Let's do it.
Cool.
Let's
You
think
want to
of.
schedule something?
Oh, you want to do a Halloweeny one just to really get the Jeremy ends out there going?
Yeah, let's do it. If you have something in mind, or we could just
Let
start
me
winging it.
let me think. We can wing it, but maybe if we wing it with a particular, maybe we can pick a story or a topic to sort of anchor it. I mean, obviously we always have vaguely ghosts and hauntings and such, but maybe we can think of a specific thing. Like, oh, actually, I got some great new Halloween stories from Ireland, like sort of more advanced folklore when I was there. So we can talk about Halloween origins if we've not talked about that before.
We could talk about it again because stuff always seeps through that.
Versus
And
evil.
we intended to talk about that never came up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a continuing conversation. When do you want to
Let's
do
try
it?
and book something here. Let me pull up my calendar here, and then
Sure.
let's book something for October. So I can't remember what days work for you.
The only thing that doesn't work for me anymore is near 2:00. I have to get my kids from school. So
Okay.
the morning's better.
Mornings are better.
10,
Okay.
11.
So like the October 11th is a good date. It's a Friday, and we could do it like 10 in the morning my time, which is 11 yours.
Sounds good. 11. I'll actually put instead of 10 this time.
Oh, I realized actually when you said okay 10, I was like, oh no, did I say the wrong, like I meant 10 my time, which is 11 yours, and anyway. So I'm gonna
It
put
works out.
10 my time, Bryan.
Perfect.
I just put Bryan. That's all I do. I just put Bryan on there.
That's all I put. I put Varla.
Yeah.
If I put Bryan, it would confuse everybody. You're gonna talk to yourself on
It would be
the 11th.
amazing.
Now I'm gonna download this thing and see how things actually work. And hopefully we have a functioning podcast here and that this is functional.
This is a new thing for you, huh?
Google
This
Hangouts is gone. It went away. It does no longer exist. So I had to. You're my second guest. I had Ken Scholes on last week, and we couldn't talk because I couldn't figure this out, or he couldn't figure it out.
You know what? You have to log in. So here, I'll just tell you a couple things that happened to me. It might help you with your next guest.
Sure. Go ahead.
When you send that link, just say, if you've not used this forum before, you're going to want to go in and set up go ahead and set up a login. Just like you have to do that with Zoom too. So you have to go in and set up a login first. You can't just go on as a guest, that I could see. So you just want to tell people to go on a few minutes early in case they want to. Like, I downloaded the app, but then actually had better success in opening the web browser. So you can just tell
No
people
apps either.
they can do it in the web browser, but they should definitely go on a few minutes before and make sure if they need an account. And then
Which
I think
browser did
I
you
had to
use?
register and verify my email address.
Did you use Firefox or Edge or
Use Chrome.
Use Chrome.
Mhm.
Chrome does not work for me on Discord.
Okay. Okay. So but then the other thing is your name, or whatever name you're recording under, should have a little. Okay, so I don't know if you can see me where it says Varla Ventura and then it says number 0851.
Oh, okay. Mine's 1997.
That someone can search for you just by that number.
Oh,
So if I had
08151.
that
0851
number,
is
when I
you.
first clicked that link, I could have just searched for you, but I was searching by your name, not Voyage of Roadkills, and so I didn't. And I searched by the podcast name and couldn't find that. But if I had had that number, I guess you can just search for a member by that number, and then anyway,
I
that's
don't know
just
if it,
so I can tell
I
someone
don't know
that.
if it would have helped you because I needed to put you in this specific server. What happened to Ken is he got here, he got into the server, but we couldn't hear each other. And then after I got off with them, I figured out it was my fault. I didn't have something set and whatever. It seems so hard to put it works. Whatever. Thank you so much for being willing to do this. And
yeah, it works fine. It took me a few minutes to get in there and whatever. Now we can do it again, no problem. Now I have an account there. And it's interesting to me. I like to learn new formats for recording. I kind of just totally tanked my podcast. I actually stopped paying for it to be hosted and all that because I just wasn't doing it. It's been like over 2 years. But I turned it into a book idea.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I don't see why not. It's an excellent idea for a book.
Strange America, going state to state and telling a few weird stories and then, just going.
Especially coming from you. I mean, when you put your perspective on it, you're going to get some unique stuff. So it's going to be unique. It's going to be interesting.
So we'll see if they go for that. Anyway, I'll keep you updated when next it happens, but I'll talk to you on the 11th.